Welcome back, everyone. We're Simply Bitcoin. We break down the news, the daily fail, meme review, software releases, hardware releases, the pleb sites, and joining us today, return guest, fellow Bitcoin pleb. I'm talking about BTC Blackburn. Thanks for joining us, my dude. We are diving into the numbers. Let's do it.
Number time! Brought to you by Nodl. They make some of the best Bitcoin nodes, like the famous Nodl Dojo. It's in red. That means it is faster. Remember, guys, if you don't run your own Bitcoin node, you're trusting someone else's. Run Bitcoin Core, run Lightning from the comfort of your own home. Get yourself a Nodl Bitcoin node today.
At the time of this recording, the block height is 732,597. The Bitcoin price, 41,325. Chain rewrite days, 749. Total public Lightning capacity, 3,665.44. Moscow time, 2420. 2420. Anyway, okay, nobody cares. Blocks to the halvening, 107,403. And the Samurai Whirlpool, unspent capacity. Samurai Whirlpool is a coin join or collaborative spend. It is not a mixing service, and the unspent capacity is 4,516.37.
Anyways, moving on. I had a really cool comment. We had. You gotta stop saying I. I gotta say we, because this is Simply Bitcoin. This is Nico and Phil, not just Nico. Bad Nico. Anyways, had some awesome comment by, I'll pop it up for you guys like always. It is by Who What, and the comment says, Bitcoin is apolitical, but it's 100% backing and backed by reality. Politics that are compatible with reality will be compatible with Bitcoin. Opportunists will try to steer Bitcoiners to deliver them to their political ambitions, but Bitcoiners have very concrete goal. So they'll either get what they want or will dump the opportunists. Bitcoin politics will still be emerging as we go back to reality. I think I know what that means, but I know reality is better than Clown World. So I'm happy to learn what that means. I've been looking for the answers my whole life, and I'm glad I found Bitcoin, parentheses, or Bitcoin found me. Phenomenal comment, bro. Shout out to Who What. You wrote some dank stuff. Wow. And dude, I think you were spot on, right? And this kind of goes back to the idea, right, of to a couple things. I think this is one of Kaiser's famous quotes, right? You don't change Bitcoin changes you. And the thing that we've kind of been riffing on for quite a bit on this show, which is this idea that Bitcoin shines a light of truth on everybody, right? So on politicians on the political left and on politicians on the political right. And what it does is it reveals their true intentions, right? That's the beauty of Bitcoin. And it does this to everybody, right? And again, because Bitcoin is connected to reality, it's connected to the real world by proof of work, I think that the side effect of that is just becoming based. And I think that because you have to become based in order to protect your own incentives, right? To watch out your own incentives, right? So I think it kind of like heals the world. It's like this really weird psychological thing that Bitcoin does, man. You know, and I think that's just that, man. Not only does it really help your soul having money that's not fictitious, right? I think that it really just unveils all this fucking rot underneath. It exposes people for who they really are. And the best example that I always give is the climate activists. You know, it's like, it's Bitcoin's boiling the oceans. It's like, so do you want that flared gas vented into the atmosphere instead? And then they kind of have cognitive dissonance and they're just like, I have credentials and I have a master's degree. I don't have to answer to you, you know? So it's just, yeah, man. But I had to read that comment. That was beautiful. That was better put than Phil and I did definitely yesterday. Adrian, what are your thoughts on this? I'll pass it on to Phil.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Bitcoin does is it keeps people honest with themselves. You know, when you have money that's not a fiction, and you're now living according to that standard, you're then impulsed to also not live by a fiction because you're not basing your reality on a lie. So to me, it's like, it's got that truth serum effect, and it exposes who's who in the zoo.
Dude, exposes who's who in the zoo. I like that little rhyme. I like that. Phil, what is your opinion on this, my friend?
It's funny that while he was saying that last thing about the zoo, that we could hear the birds chirping. So I have a feeling Adrian knows. He has deep knowledge about the zoo. And speaking of the zoo, we should give a shout out to the zoo, which is a very interesting group of Bitcoiners on Twitter. Anyways, okay. So look, besides that, right, I think that to Nico's point, right, what he said was elegant, very well put. And the truth of the matter is this is exactly what we said. We need to, look, the people and entities that are going to use Bitcoin for politics, for its political ends, they are going to do so whether we want to or not. That's the beauty of Bitcoin. They can do whatever they want. We can do whatever we want. But guess what? Since they can do whatever they want, then what we can do is change the framing, which is what I said yesterday, right? Which is, instead of we always look at this in terms of right and left, we start looking at this as, okay, so which of these politicians, which of these people and these individuals and groups are in favor of the money spigot and what it brings, and which ones are in favor of hard money? And then we simply back and work with the ones that believe in and work towards the hard money standard. It's really that simple. You know, like, and it really sucks out a lot of the noise. And again, right, it's another way for us to extrapolate out that noise and just show the signal of, hey, these are the incentives exposed. These are the people that are either for or against hard money. That's it. So, yeah, I think that, he said it very well. That was a great comment. And don't get me wrong, it will not be the last thing that we say on this, It's only the beginning.
It's only the beginning of Bitcoin.
They are not going to stop
entering into the realms of politics.
Yeah.
But the beauty of this, again, is that, remember, you don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you. And number two, Bitcoin exposes all the bullshit. That's one of the unintended consequences of the genius of Satoshi's creation. But anyways, one last comment. We have time for one last comment. This comment is by Brad Doc Akalartis 2. Anyways, he said something really interesting. He said, "Isn't it better for governments to not embrace it and not recognize it as legal tender? I liken it to the assisted pull-up machine at the gym. Legal tender laws are like assisted pull-ups. Just do regular pull-ups and get stronger, and then laugh at the assisted pull-up machine." Very, very good analogy. Now, here's the thing. Legal tender laws are bullshit in the first place. I recommend reading this book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, and you'll see why. Fiat money requires legal tender laws in order to coerce people into using it, because it's fake bullshit money. But if you put a gun to everyone's head and you said you don't have an option but to use that fake bullshit money, right? People use it, which is why legal tender laws are a thing. If we had real sound money, legal tender laws would not be necessary. Legal tender laws are literally the result of fiat money. Now, in terms of your awesome analogy, in terms of the gym, it depends. Personally, there's going to be a transition period as we transition from the industrial age into the information age, right? And during this transition, I know Bitcoin, right, and freedom of speech on the internet wins. But I have I fear for the transition and how many casualties are taken in the transition, like Julian Assange, like Ross Ulbricht, like all these people, right? So, yes, we could definitely go full underground. We don't need the government. Fuck them. Fuck this shit. But maybe it'd be a little bit easier for just to, try to get a couple politicians on our side so that we don't get beat up by this giant government bureaucracy stick. Just saying, right? Again, it's a point of contention. I know a lot of Bitcoiners in the comments are like, guys, fuck this shit, But dude, Phil and I have been in this very unique situation where we've been seeing this play out in slow motion. And I'm telling you, not everyone has the means to have multiple passports. Not everyone has the means to just get up and leave their country, right? So unfortunately, what I believe is that Bitcoin is going to continue to become more political. And if it does, if that's the inevitability of Bitcoin, if you really want Bitcoin to become the next global reserve currency, then let's have as many goddamn politicians on our side. Whether they're left or right, it's irrelevant. Do they support Bitcoin or are they against it, right? So that's just kind of my perspective. I could be wrong. Anyways, I'm going to pass it on to Phil. What do you think?
You know what? I mean, what if, and I do appreciate the analogy, but what if that assisted weight machine is there because the person is slightly too weak to do it on their own, so they have to use it in order to be able to build up, to be able to do it entirely on their own without the assisted machine. So in terms of Bitcoin, right, that means that exactly what you said, Nico, like, look, legal tender laws are total bullshit. Okay, if you look at the dollar bill, it actually says it's not asking you, it's telling you that this is what you will use to settle all public and private debts. You have no choice. This is what you're using. This is what we have to use. I mean, that's all that's backing it is violence. Violence in the state. There's nothing else backing it. So don't get me wrong, but you know what? It means nothing. It means nothing in terms of Bitcoin because we have proof of work. So for me, I just, look, you know what? It's like exactly what you said, Nico. Some countries are going to have a crutch, right? They're going to have to use the crutch until they can walk on their own. I don't really have a problem with it. But when we say that Bitcoin can be legal tender, we are actually giving into that fiat mindset and we're giving it validation. But it's a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword. If you don't do it and you ignore it entirely, then you miss out on having a lot of people that are unfortunately really entrenched in that system that maybe would actually be happy or part of the Bitcoin ecosystem. And then they wouldn't find out about it. So, you know what? It's a double-edged sword and it's difficult. It really is. You know, like you can't be all tinfoil hat, right? You can't be all like none of this exists, you know? So at some point we have to sit there and say, okay, you know what? This is our bridge. This is the olive branch, you know, that we're putting out. Here you go. Do you want to take the olive branch or not?
Yep, absolutely. Blackburn, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think Phil said the key word is bridge, you know, because you don't want to do anything that is kind of giving governments any more validity. I think the context has to be very specific. I mean, if governments want to play some kind of a supportive role and, assist people to get on those on-ramps to find Bitcoin, then I'm all for it. And, you know, I even have to question, like, if I didn't come from a more well-to-do country like Canada, like, would I even have been able to have accessed Bitcoin in the first place, you know? Mm-hmm. So you do have to be real with yourself about, like, what a difference that can make. But, and, you know, even though part of me wants to be like, yeah, we don't need governments, they make no difference to anything, whatever. I mean, it's great that Bitcoin is designed that we don't need them, ultimately, at the end of the day. But they can make a difference.
They can make your life awfully difficult, right? So the question is, it's like, you know, like, are we gonna take the hardcore Bitcoin, like, you know, fuck this shit, it's all underground, or, you know, are we gonna try? Because here's the thing, right? And Alex Gladstein wrote an excellent articles about this, right? Is that you can't have the NGU technology without the freedom enabling technology. Right, so hopefully we can entice a lot of these politicians with the NGU technology, and they take the pill, and before they know it, they also took a pill for freedom. Right, so anyways, that's my hope. That being said, Phil, it's time for
The Daily Fail. Brought to you by Amber App. Check them out, amber.app. Guys, we are stacking Why Not Stack Sats with Amber. Low fees, fair spreads, smart automation, a stacking app by Bitcoiners. The link is down below.
Amber, the smart way to stack sats.
All right, so in today's fail, we're going to dive into something pretty nasty. We're going to take a look at that IMF electronic standard garbage. But before we do that, we're going to take a little trip down memory lane. I think a lot of people remember Jordan Belfort. A lot of us saw the movie The Wolf of Wall Street, right, with Leonardo DiCaprio. We all love that movie. It's fantastic. We use the memes all the time. Okay, so everybody is very familiar with this. So Jordan Belfort, aka The Wolf of Wall Street, called Bitcoin a huge scam. This is 4 years ago. Called it a huge scam. Okay, so Jordan Belfort, Wolf of Wall Street, is now marketing himself as a crypto mastermind. Last week, he hosted a 2-day, $40K per person crypto workshop at his Miami estate. Okay? And that was April 16th. That's right. So here we go. Jordan Belfort reportedly charged $40K for 2-day crypto workshop at his Miami estate 3 years after he called Bitcoin a mass delusion. So check this out. Here's the signal. It's 9 attendees paid. Oh, they got wrecked. They paid 1 Bitcoin, or approximately $40K, to attend the mastermind class held at Belfort's Miami estate. Okay, those 9 people wrecked. You just paid $40K, first of all, for knowledge that you could get for free online. That's number 1. And number 2, you just paid. If you actually paid 1 full Bitcoin, if he got you to give 1 full Bitcoin, you just got scammed out of 1 Bitcoin for absolutely nothing. Like, literally, you just paid for nothing. You may have even just, you know what? You may have just paid to lose because you lost your time. You're never going to get that back. It's worth who knows how much, but you lost it. Anyways, before we dive in, because the rest of the fail, Nico, it's going to be heavy, man. It's going to be very heavy. So let me know what are you, I guess, you know what? Let's go with your thoughts first before we hand it over to Adrian.
Dude, look, who's ever signing up for that course, you are literally paying someone who scammed people for a living, who still owes the U.S. government tens of millions of dollars. That's what he's good at. He got good at selling people dog shit. He is the original shitcoiner before shitcoining was a fucking thing. This guy convinced people to buy penny stocks that literally had no fucking value. What is that but the precursor to shitcoining? And you're trusting this motherfucker to do good by you. Come on, man. If you believe in that shit, you deserve to get wrecked, bro. Listen. He did his time. He paid his due to society. All that good stuff. Made a comeback. Made the movie. But just look at the guy's history. Is that really someone that you should be trusting? Just a question I'm throwing out there. Anyways, Adrian, what are your thoughts on this?
A fool is always parted with his money. That's all I could say. I'm amazed that there's that many people that even have that much money to lose. But I mean, where are these people? I would like to meet them. They could give me their money. It'd go much further. Jordan doesn't need it. But yeah, no. What can I say? If that happens to you, like you said, you deserve it.
Yeah, and a little bit of a self-plug, guys. What we always promise you on this show, right, is Bitcoin content should always be free. And all of our stuff is free, right? This is why we take the sponsors. This is why you have to listen to a little 10-second sponsor ad so that we don't have to pass that cost to yourselves. Phil and I will never go to you and say, listen, in order to watch Simply Bitcoin, you need to pay, and you'll get this reference if you get it, you'll need to pay $850 a course. Never. We will never do that to you guys. If you want to contribute, help the show, we would love that. We'd be honored, but it's always optional. You guys could contribute if you don't want to, no problem. Our content will always be free to watch. Anyways, Phil, what is the last fail?
Wrecked. The people charging $850, dude. Wrecked. Okay. All right, let's dive into this. This is gonna get all right. Let me just we're gonna
to each their own, right? Like if that's what you want to do, right? We're libertarians at heart, right? So if that's what you want to do, we're capitalists, we're not communists, right? We just wouldn't do it ourselves.
This is true. This is true. And on that note, we're going to dive into a historical problem, right? Nico, you've read The Creature from Jekyll Island. I've read The Creature from Jekyll Island. We understand.
Great recommendation, by the way. Thank you for that, because it was Phil that recommended me that book, and it's phenomenal.
Dude, you know what? It's required. I think it's required reading for all Bitcoiners. We all should read it. And if you haven't, check it out. Anyways, on the heels of Jekyll Island, right? We're going to examine the IMF announcement about their electronic money. But before we do, I just want to give some background, right? Because the IMF is made up of the same groups and the same people, the same totes that the Federal Reserve is made up of. So let's dive into some background information here for a second before we dive into this electronic money. 100 years later, the Federal Reserve has failed, and I want you guys to keep in mind, this is December 20th, 2013, this article is from, and it's on Forbes, okay? So just keep that in mind, the source that it's coming from. It's very interesting that this was on Forbes. I guess this is before they were worried about people actually pulling the strings together. Anyways, 100 years later, the Federal Reserve has failed at everything it's tried. On December 23rd, 1913, President Woodrow Wilson signed the Owen Glass Act, creating the Federal Reserve. Under the Fed's supervision, boom and bust cycles have continued. 3 of them have been severe: the Great Depression, the stagflationary period of 74 to 82, and the current Great Recession, which they're referring to the 2008 crisis. Bank failures have occurred in alarmingly high numbers. Depending on what measurements are used, the dollar has lost between 95 and 98% of its purchasing power. Keep that in mind. That's part of the signal. The 1970 amendments to the Federal Reserve Act stipulated that the Fed should promote effectively the goals of maximum employment, stable prices, and moderate long-term interest rates. Keep those 3 things in mind. First, the premise that the central bank can fix unemployment is erroneous. It's based on the Phillips curve, the discredited academic theory positing a trade-off between inflation and employment. Unemployment is fundamentally a price problem, not a monetary problem. Therefore, the cure for unemployment is a free market in wages and not particular monetary policy. Second, central bank tampering with interest rates is the fundamental cause of, not the cure for, the boom and bust cycles. Thus, the Fed should cease from tampering with interest rates. Remember, this is on Forbes, 2013. Finally, focusing on stable prices is looking at the problem backwards. The Fed shouldn't try to influence prices any more than a nurse should influence the reading of a thermometer. The fever that causes prices to rise and purchasing power to fall is sick money. Heal the money. Okay, now let's take a look at this psychotic, ass-backwards clown show that is the electronic money standard and the possibility of zero inflation target. Keep in mind, I just read to you how over 100 years these bodies have completely failed in this task, in doing the simple thing of administering the monetary policy because of human greed and the power desire. So let's dive into this. A world with lower inflation and zero inflation and no persistent recessions may sound like a pipe dream, but we argue that it's possible by transitioning to an electronic money standard. Such a transition requires eliminating the zero lower bound. That's right, which central banks can achieve using readily available tools. Now look, the framing that I have for this article is that they're selling us this. They're essentially, the IMF is selling us a product. The same way that the Federal Reserve sold a very small group of very powerful people on the idea of the Federal Reserve, the same way that the IMF is now trying to sell everyone on this idea of this electronic money standard. Anyways, this will empower central banks to quickly restore full employment and over the medium term, possibly move toward targeting full price stability with zero inflation. Guys, literally in that sentence, the 3 things the Federal Reserve could not do for 100 years, okay, the IMF is going to fix. Couldn't do it before with the same stupid monetary policies, but we're going to do it now because it's electronic? A variety of factors, including an aging population that has raised the saving rate, have led to a decline in productivity and greater demand for safe assets, and the neutral real rate of interest has trended downward worldwide. That's right. We're blaming old people. We're blaming savers.
Dude,
okay?
You know how fucking maniacal that is, dude.
Insane. These people worked for their money, and now you're blaming them. Hey, thanks for those 70 years
for saving too much to watch out for your family because we printed too much. You are now the enemy of the IMF, which explains, and we'll get to this in the news segment, why they are so against Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a central planner's worst fucking nightmare. And these people, like I pointed out a couple days ago, the head of the IMF, Georgina something, literally graduated from the Karl Marx Institute in economics. I don't know how Karl Marx and economics could literally be in the same goddamn sentence. It contradicts itself. Anyways, I'll shut up.
No, not at all. Not at all. Hey, listen, we covered this. I wanted to add this at the beginning. We covered this in the news segment in a specific framing. We're covering it now in the fail in this different framing where we're diving into why this is a total disaster waiting to happen. Anyways, okay, let's keep moving on about how they're going to make us poorer under the guise of everyone is free and equal. Breaking the zero lower bound requires eliminating the arbitrage opportunity between cash that guarantees a zero nominal interest rate and money in the bank that would earn negative interest rates if policy rates were cut into negative territory. That's right. They're going to try to convince us to steal from ourselves. This is fantastic. This is psychotic and fantastic. And this, ladies and gentlemen, are the people that run our monetary policy in our system.
This is not psychotic, Phil. Remember that Bitcoiners are now the psychos. We're the psychos. They're okay. They're the smart ones. They're our betters. They know what's best.
True. And here we go. We're going to evidence this. We're going to further evidence how they know best. A zero lower bound can be broken through a combination of 1, adopting or strengthening an electronic money standard in which electronic money is the unit of account, and 2, implementing a time-varying interest rate, or more generally rate of return, on paper currency, cash. So they want to figure out a way to steal from your cash. They want to make it less valuable constantly as well. They want to make sure that the cash that you have is subject to this negative interest rate constantly. An essential element of an electronic money standard is that it does not require the elimination of paper currency to enable deep negative rates. It is enough to modify paper currency policy. An arbitrage between cash and electronic money is at the expense of the central bank's balance sheet. All due respect, fuck you. Fuck you, central bank. Because why do we need to have our value that we can't get back stolen, and the central bank can just simply, at the wave of a wand, print money ad nauseum and make us all poor ad nauseum? This is psychotic crap. No one needs to get poorer in order to have social services. No one needs this poverty. Anyways.
Dude, it's not about that. It's the fact
I know,
that
but it's what happens.
They're central planners. They think they know what's best. Dude, the system where we are today, right, with the record amount of wealth inequality, right? The fact that my generation, Adrian and I were talking about this off screen before, we can't afford, or no, he took the good route and he got the fuck out. But the average millennial in the United States, right? They can't afford, right? They can't afford to buy a house right now.
No, they
this
can't.
is the result of all of their fucking policies, and they still don't understand that they are the fucking problem. Anyways,
Who got rich? Right? Who got rich?
yeah.
It's not the future generations. You know how we always talk about how the future generations should be better, right? They should be better off than us. Like, why the hell are we worse off than our parents somehow?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but it's all good because guess what, man? We've got great phones. Got awesome phones, dude. We're set.
Remember, it's 2030. You own nothing. Be happy, bro. They say it themselves, man.
I know. Okay, so here we go. Let's keep diving into this shit show because believe it or not, it does get worse. Eliminating cash would also be highly controversial among the public. The key issue is that the existence of cash limits government power somewhat. Rogoff and Rogoff argue that it is good to increase government's power to suppress cash-intensive activities that are illegal, such as trade in deadly drugs and tax evasion. So again, we are going back to the same bullshit narratives. Okay, we are doing this for your safety. Your value needs to be controlled by us for your safety. It's for your good. Countries were able to revive their economies by going off the gold standard. Moving from a paper standard to an electronic money standard can empower monetary policy to cut interest rates as much as needed for economic stimulus during recessions, while enabling a gradual shift to zero inflation target. That's right. This is the bullshit that they just made up about the gold standard. Let's take a look at the purchasing power of the dollar. Was it really the best thing to do to get off that gold standard? What was that? Was that really?
It was for them. For them.
It was for them. It was for a very small group of people to maintain power. But for the average person, we all got screwed. All of our time became worth infinitely less. Literally, anyways. All right, here we go. So here are the benefits of this bullshit. All right, here we go. Benefit number 1. True price stability with restored firepower to end recessions, right? Just like we saw in that other article from the 100 years of the Fed Reserve reign. They were also supposed to stop recessions and boom and bust cycles. We just went through one in 2008. Bitcoin was born. Next, once the transition to the electronic standard eliminates the zero lower bound, a central bank can enable deep negative rates, if and when needed, thus maintaining monetary policy's power to end recessions quickly. We have no freaking clue that this is going to work.
So you know what that means, right?
Oh, do I ever?
So essentially a negative interest rate. So think about it this way, right? The bank, you have to pay the bank for them to hold your money so they could make money off the money that you have with them at the bank. Think about that for a sec. And the reason that they do these, the central planners think that they can incentivize people to spend, right, by having these negative interest rates, but it's pesky cash, because cash is the last thing that doesn't allow them to do this effectively. Do you know how crazy this is? Don't save for a better future because you have to spend, because we know what's best for you and your family.
All right, here we go. Benefit number 2. Avoid episodes of high inflation by enabling vigorous use of interest rates in either direction. So I want you to think about this. We are currently going through the highest inflation in 40 years. They couldn't do it with any of the tools now. Do you honestly think that by making the cash electronic, we're simply going to avoid this? This is psychotic dream nonsense. It makes no sense. Okay, benefit number 3, minimize. This is actually one of my favorites. It's really interesting. Minimized nominal illusion. Money illusion is a cognitive bias that causes people to think of money in terms of its face value instead of its real purchasing power. Money illusion distorts behavior in many areas of daily life. No, we're not having an illusion that our purchasing power is going down. No one is having an illusion about this. So somehow they introduced this weird confusion into this article that makes zero freaking sense whatsoever. Benefit number 4, a simple price level targeting approach. That sounds like some weird price fixing shit to me anyways. A key advantage of a zero inflation target is that it can make price level targeting easy to explain. Price level targeting refers to central bank targeting of the level of prices instead of the rate of inflation. Does that sound like price fixing to you? I don't know what that is. Adrian? Well, thoughts?
This is one step before communism, bro. That's my fucking
This is like I mean, this just sounds ridiculous. All right, we're gonna continue on here. Here we go. Since the global financial crisis, central banks have become concerned about the effect of lower rates on financial stability. Once zero lower bounds are broken, central banks can use vigorous interest rate cuts to shorten recessions enough that downwardly sticky nominal wages will present less of a problem.
These people have had a shot. Okay, Phil, finish up.
Yeah, I'll finish up. And yeah, a transition to an electronic money standard holds the dual promise of providing monetary policy firepower to restore full employment quickly while targeting full price stability with zero inflation. 100 years later, the Federal Reserve has failed at everything it's tried. Guys, this is bullshit.
They think they could centrally plan better than millions upon millions upon millions of individuals making their own goddamn decisions. After 100 years of collectivism, literally 100 million people died. Right, whether it's the right-wing collectivism, fascism, whether it's the left-wing collectivism, communism, always ends in death. Central planning is fucking horrendous. After 100 years, these motherfuckers still have not figured out that is the case. Why? Because they can't get over the fact that they would have to give up power back to the people so that the people could take care of it better than they can. And they can't stand that. It can't compute in their minds. Remember, when central banks and the IMF says that Bitcoin is a risk to financial stability, what they really mean is that Bitcoin is a risk for it stops them from being able to manipulate people through monetary policy. That is what they define as financial stability. Nut jobs. Opt the fuck out. Buy yourself some Bitcoin. Anyways, Adrian, closing thoughts.
Yeah, I hope they get what they want. I hope there's people around the world who only use cash. And then what happens one day when cash disappears? Well, they're going to have to use something else, and Bitcoin's going to be their best option. So everything they do is just going to push people more and more towards the solution, which is Bitcoin. So quite honestly, I would love to see them try and do all this stuff. It'll be such a disaster. And if anything, it'll just play right into every single Bitcoiner's hands.
I 100% agree with that statement. That's, all marketing is good for Bitcoin. keep attacking us, baby. Honey Badger gets stronger. But anyways, Phil, it's time for
the Daily Meme Review.
Brought to you by Citadel 21. They make the best Bitcoin cultural zine. It's stories, articles, comics written by actual Bitcoiners. This is volume 11. It just dropped, and this is volume 10. Every volume has different artwork by different Bitcoin artists, and they're scarce. There's only 1,000 copies made per volume. Get your prints of Citadel 21 today. Another episode of the Daily Bitcoin Meme Review. Where we review Bitcoin memes, and we give them scores. The scores themselves are memes. So it's a meme review of Bitcoin memes, of which the scores are memes. So it's all memes and a review, and it's Bitcoin.
And a meme.
It's a meme within a meme, and it's Bitcoin. Okay, I'm gonna shut up. First meme is brought to us by Samson Mao, legendary. He is, dude. He handed me a business card at the Bitcoin conference. Literally says Bitcoin nation state adoption. This guy's flying high. Left block stream. That's what he's doing now. Badass. So anyway, shout out to Samson. Big fan. Buy Bitcoin with dollars while you still can. Elizabeth Warren, this one is for you. The US dollar, nothing. And by the way, this is Atlas, right? It's an old Greek myth, right. And he's the one that holds the globe. Anyways, Satoshi was the first psychopath. I like that. That is correct.
Come on, that's well done. Dude, this dude is great. He's got fire memes.
Oh, he's been coming through.
Yeah.
All right. This is very deep. I feel like I say this all the time, right? Mm-hmm. Time is greater than money. You could always make more money, but you cannot never get back the time that has left. Anyways, the rat race really paid off. Maxed out my 401k, now Social Security at age 65, all to spend the last 12 months of my life on this deathbed. Dude, honestly, it's very true. Phil, you quit. I gave you the same speech as I was like, dude, what are you going to do? You're going to follow your dreams, or you're going to fucking get stuck with those golden handcuffs that pay really well doing something that you don't want to do, right? So, nice. Yeah, man, I really believe that. And you know what? I also really believe this, guys. Bitcoin makes this possible for everyone. If you have discipline, to stack really hard for 4 to 8 years, you will be able to follow your dreams. Because you're not the anxiety of not being uncertain about the future, of not being able to afford things, is going to dissipate. Literally, it doesn't matter how much money you make. If you stack disciplined for 4 years, it takes 4 years to get comfortable and 8 years to get wealthy relative to where you started. You're not going to find yourself in this position.
Yeah.
Bitcoin gives you freedom. Or Michael Saylor even has the URL hope.com, right? It's hope for a better future. You're hodling meme stocks to fuck over hedgies. I'm holding Bitcoin to bankrupt the banksters. We are not the same.
I love this template.
Very good. All right. Hang in there, Bitcoin plebs. 40K Bitcoiners 2021. 40K Bitcoiners 2022. Very good.
Come on, the Matrix Architect?
Yeah, the Architect. This will be the third. When I was a little kid, I watched that like at least 10 times to understand what their conversation meant. I watched that when I was older, and I still have no fucking idea what the conversation meant.
Really?
Dude, it
All
was
right, we'll
like...
talk about this offline.
It was like... Da, 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 da. Yeah, maybe it's because I have a short attention span.
No.
Anyways, this will be the 39th time Bitcoin has crossed 40K. And we have become exceedingly efficient at it. Okay. And simply Bitcoin, Mr. Robot, how the Fed handles inflation. Dude, simple, but very, very well done. Awesome memes for everybody. And for awesome memes, I'm on this tip right now where I'm getting tired of these headphones in my ears. So, like, now, whether I go to the gym or, like, when I go out for a walk, I just bring this fucking speaker with me. And I just carry it. And it just, you know, everyone's going to get annoyed because they're listening to my music. But, like, fuck that. It's nicer than having these having your ears evaded. Yeah.
You're a psychopath.
I am. This is true.
And other people can join in.
Phil, what would you give those memes?
All right. Those were great memes. I love them. And I am not as fancy as Nico with the awesome speaker, but I will give it this no shitcoin sticker.
Oh. Blackburn, what would you give those memes? I remember your score from last time. It was a fucking drum set. Yeah. It was badass. What would you give those memes?
Yeah. Well, today we got a very nice 14 by 6.5 Paduke stave snare drum.
Wow! Very, very nice. Very, very
beautiful.
Nice. This is what I mean.
Custom powder coat light hardware.
It's beautiful. This is what I mean, guys. Listen, you
made that?
Of course, he made that.
I'm just specifying for the viewers.
Yeah, I built that. That's
That's
the actual wood, by the way. There's no paint.
Oh, okay. It's actually red. Holy crap! Very, very beautiful.
Sorry, Nico.
Yeah, like there's no paint or stain or anything. All the woods I use are all exotic hardwoods.
Dude, so fucking cool. But yeah, so this is what I mean, guys. Like, look, like. It doesn't matter how much money you make, right? Matters if you're disciplined at dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin day or shine, no matter how high the price is, no matter how low. You do that for 4 years, you're going to be very comfortable. You do that for 8 years, you're going to be wealthy relatively to where you started and relative to the people around you. And you will be able to pursue your dreams before you turn 60, okay? You know? And if you are 60 plus, dude, you do it before you turn 70. Boom. Right? But anyways, guys, we want to know if you agree with our scores, you disagree, let us know down in the comment section. Make sure to subscribe to us on alternative video platforms like our personal favorite, bitcointv.com and rumble.com. They're doing a lot of censoring these days, so make sure to find us on there if you can't find us here. And of course, make sure to join our awesome Telegram group, They've been giving us some amazing memes lately. Thank you guys so much. Make sure to join the Telegram group. It's an awesome community. That being said, Phil, it's time for
the Daily News.
Brought to you by CryptoCloaks.com. Do you want 3D printed Bitcoin stuff, but you're too lazy to make it? Well, you should go to CryptoCloaks.com, and he can take care of all your 3D printed Bitcoin merch needs, like the famous 3D printed Bitcoin art sculpture grenade opens up, you put your favorite hardware wallet in there, and you can also get this in any custom color your heart desires, and you can take advantage of the link down below to get 5% off CryptoCloaks.com. To kind of tie in to, because Phil went a little bit longer, and I had a piece on the IMF today, I'm going to save it for tomorrow, but the reason I'm bringing it up is I want you guys to tie this in to what Phil was saying, right? So Phil was essentially saying is that the IMF essentially wants to have such a centrally planned currency that they don't want you to save. But you know what's stopping them? To use Christine Lagarde, the head of the European Central Bank's own words, that very, very naughty Bitcoin escape valve. So check this out. We're going to review this in totality tomorrow. I'm just going to read you this headline. This is the Global Financial Stability Report, April 2022, by the IMF. But I'm just going to read you this headline of this article that covers that report. IMF says capital control powers should include crypto. Why should they include crypto? Because it's the escape valve. Now, I want to focus on this article by The Guardian, very reputable news source, right? That makes the case for what? The IMF's wet dream, baby. Those central bank digital currencies. And this ties into this idea that I've been trying to tell you guys over and over and over again. In the future, the not so distant future, you're going to have to pick and choose between a central bank digital currency, slightly more convenient slavery, or slightly less convenient freedom, which is Bitcoin. It's happening. Anyways, let's check this out. Article by The Guardian. Currency and control why China wants to undermine Bitcoin. While the argument rages about whether the volatility of crypto is a sign of fundamental weakness or merely a bump along the road, I would even say it's not a fundamental weakness. It's literally a feature, not a bug, right? The thing is, what they don't mention about this volatility is that it's volatility on the way up. These so-called stable currencies, it's literally progressively on the way down forever. Of course, they can't tell you that. Or merely a bump in the road. The initiatives coming out of Beijing are being seen by experts, again, those are the same experts/scientists that called us psychopaths, as a sign of China's attempt to incubate its own fledgling e-currency. And check this out. China is going to reboot the international financial system. The People's Bank of China aims to become the first major central bank to issue a central bank digital currency. While the People's Bank of China counterparts in the West have taken a more cautious approach, maybe because they're not this, dictatorial regime that has killed tens of millions in their own people, back in the color revolution and all that. Maybe they're not locking down people in Shanghai and entire cities. Maybe that's the reason. But anyways, check out, dude, these corporate media legacy things are so compromised. Just check out the wording. The benefits of an e-currency are immense. As more and more transactions are made using a digital currency controlled centrally, the government gains more and more ability to monitor the economy and its people. Tie this in with the IMF that Phil covered. Tie this in with literally the headline of this article. We're going to go through it tomorrow, but check this out. IMF says capital control powers should include crypto. Bitcoin is the way out, which is why China banned it in the first place. And this is the alternative. This is the alternative that you have. And this is the pomp that these people have. The government gains more and more ability to monitor the economy and its people. When the fuck has the government ever done better than the free market at doing anything? Never. China believes that by internationalizing the yuan, it could reduce its dependence on the dollar-denominated banking system. Alarm in Western countries is such that the threat posed by the digital yuan, which could put China out of the reach from international financial sanctions. There it is again. The threat of an unregulated alternative monetary system emerging from blockchain technology is a clear and present danger to the Communist Party, according to observers. Seen from the perspective of central banks, cryptocurrencies are a threat to financial stability. There it is again. Financial stability to them basically means that Bitcoin undermines their ability to control people. That's what they define financial stability as. The people win. The elite central bankers, they lose. Anyways, and this, I think this quote is very telling. All central banks want to control them. The People's Bank of China, the US Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, he says they have no interest in parallel currencies floating around. So that's another reason to control cryptos. Here it is, Phil. Connect us what you were saying. To protect the consumer. Uninformed investors could lose huge amounts of money. What about all that money lost by that inflation? That's never mentioned.
No, because that's part of the system, Nico. That's part of that's a feature. The value loss is a feature, not a bug.
Fans said on Thursday that cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin had become tools for speculation and were bringing potential risks, here it is again, to financial security and social stability. Did you guys see the protests in all these countries about the massive inflation? What about that? Isn't that a threat to social stability? Listen, guys, when you have a corporate legacy media institution siding with the Chinese Communist Party, who is responsible for killing tens of millions of their own people during the Cultural Revolution, during the Color Revolutions, literally starving people to death, right? That is usually not a good sign. That is usually not something that you want to copy. You know who also said that? Brad Sherman. You guys remember Brad Sherman? He said we should be following China's example. Let me tell you guys something. If the United States wants to keep its leadership role in the world of business and finance, it needs to get rid of this centralization bullshit. And it needs to double down on Bitcoin, where everybody wins. But in order for that to happen, a lot of these government bureaucrats need to fucking eat some humble pie and realize that they are the fucking problem. So yeah, man, it's just connect this with what Phil was saying about the IMF. The push for this is just absolutely absurd. Let me show two more examples here. And I look, for the Beijing Olympics, medal leaders reflect world central bank digital currencies. So they used the Olympic Games in Beijing to market their central bank digital currencies. An update to the global CBDC race and how the international debut of the digital yuan at the Winter Games is pure Olympic gold. Another mainstream institution. Over $315,000 in digital yuan used every day at Olympics. People's Bank of China officials say. This is why the International Monetary Fund is against Bitcoin. This is why China bans Bitcoin within its borders. This is why the World Economic Forum attacks Bitcoin. Because it gives people freedom from the central planners. And the central planners, that drives them absolutely up the wall. And if the United States, I don't think it's going to go this route, decides to try to go through the route of China, a central fucking this Frankenstein creature that's going to allow governments to control every single action that people do with their lives, they're not playing their strengths. The strengths of the United States is individualism, is American exceptionalism, right? And Bitcoin is perfect for that. Let's get rid of the central bank fucking money and let's move on to Bitcoin. And I hope that's the path that the United States takes. If we follow in the route of China, we're not going to do it as good as these crazy communists that are willing to kill tens of millions of their own people. We're just not going to do that. So are we going to half-ass it? Is it going to be like half of a surveillance coin, but it's still going to have some features? No. Let's double down on the most fucking American currency that was ever invented in the history of mankind. Bitcoin. Even the founding fathers would agree. Anyways, Phil, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, they definitely would have all been Bitcoiners. That is 100%. The other thing is this, right? This is the final battle, right? This is the final boss. The central bank, the Bank of International Settlements. I mean, look, the separation of money and state is probably going to be the biggest battle of our time. I mean, the battle of separating church and state went on for, I don't know how many, I feel like it went on for definitely more than 100 years, if not more, that just, the business of dying for God is very good. Well, guess what? The business of dying for money is also good, right? Because we all know our current system is backed by violence, and we all understand how many people die in these wars. But anyways, my point being, this is going to be a total uphill battle. I don't see us going in the direction of China. We are going to find out, right? We always say how Bitcoin exposes our incentives. We are going to find out exactly, number one, which states are freedom-oriented and which ones aren't, because I think that's where the battleground begins, right? If we start to see some politicians or a group of politicians start to bring in these practices from China, which we've already started to see, we are going to begin to see the divide, the further divide. Okay. Yes. And yeah. So anyways, I'm definitely, I'm optimistic about Bitcoin, but I'm definitely worried and scared because of who owns the corporate owned media.
I agree.
Their allegiances and incentives.
But they're dying. The ability of the corporate media to control the masses is severely diminishing year upon year. Joe Rogan being the most popular broadcaster, I think, highlights that. Anyways, Adrian, any closing thoughts?
What a shit show. And it just reminds me of what I was saying earlier. I think the more that they try, the more it's going to push people to figure out what the hell is going on in this world, and it's just going to create more dividing lines. It's going to push people to really look at what's going on in this world and decide where they're going to stand. And I don't think we've even begun to see the effects of what Bitcoin can actually produce in this world. I think when did El Salvador happen? Like last September, I think.
Dude, and it's like literally the crime has already gone down. The GDP has increased by 20%. So, and that's just 1 year of a Bitcoin standard.
So I mean, like we've seen nothing. So as far as actually seeing the full, measurable effects of what Bitcoin can do in this world, I don't think we've seen it. I think we're still living in order out of chaos. Isn't that written on the American dollar bill in like Latin and something? Isn't it written like Ordo Abdo Kai or something like that? Anyway, it's somewhere on the American money, it's written in Latin, order out of chaos. And to me, that sums up the entire fiat system, is to basically just create as much chaos in people's lives as possible. 100%. And that's how you take advantage of people.
To benefit the few, so that central bankers could essentially control the populace. Remember, fiat is anti-American. It was established in 1913. The founding fathers of this country, of the United States, were vehemently against paper money. And to end this news segment, I'm going to read you a quote by George Washington himself. He says, "Paper money has had the effect in your state that it will ever have, to ruin commerce, oppress the honest, and open the door to every species of fraud and injustice. America needs to go back to its roots. It needs to go on a Bitcoin standard." And it's going to happen. It's inevitable. And for any country that doesn't, have fun staying poor. Anyways, Phil, there was an open source software release today. Why don't you tell everybody about it?
Software releases brought to you by CipherSafe. Check them out, cyphersafe.io. Okay, we already went through it. The paper burns. The other thing is you don't want to store your seed in a bank's deposit box. That makes no sense because now the bank holds your seed. What you want to do, store it yourself, store it in the Cypher wheel, or store it in the all-new Cypher grid. They both come with a tamper-resistant wire, but the grid also comes with a punch tool. All right, we've got the latest version of MyNode, that's right, 0.2.54. So if you've already got MyNode installed, you could just upgrade from your, directly from your web UI. Otherwise, on the website, it's still 2.53. Anyways, 2.54 is released. It's down below in the show notes. Guys, don't forget to check us out on our audio-only platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. And if you want to stream us some sats, check us out on fountain.fm. You could stream using Breeze.
Awesome. Thank you, Phil. All right, guys, that was our show. Before we go, I want to give a very special shout out to our clothing sponsor, representltd.com. Phil and I wear the hoodies every single day. He's making Bitcoin stuff, Bitcoin merch now. Very, very high quality clothing. RepresentLTD.com. And you can take advantage of the link down below to get 10% off. Guys, I also want to give a very special shout out to a dear, dear friend of the show. This guy has been with us since the very beginning. He's been a fan. You'll give him a follow on Twitter at BTC Blackburn. He builds drums for Bitcoin. Definitely support another fellow plebbing. And of course, guys, that was the show. If you enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash that like button. And of course, if you want to continue hearing the Bitcoin news from the pleb perspective and the catastrophic fails from the fucking crazy central planners, dude, holy crap, definitely consider subscribing to Simply Bitcoin, and we'll see you tomorrow, guys, for a brand new episode.
Bitcoin exposes all our incentives. No one is spared.